Hello everyone and welcome back to Replay Works and welcome back to another replay review. To be honest, I didn't expect to do another one this week, but here we are with Egman's Triple Winnabox number 2 results. And the results are amazing for blue-green Rush players like myself. Probably not so much for anyone expecting a slower pace meta, but just to spoil it, blue-green took 1 and 2, and we're going to see 2 different builds of blue-green, which is very interesting from my last video. But before that, just want a quick reminder, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. It helps me know that people are interested in this type of content, and I really do appreciate anyone who's watched so far and stuck with me video on video. So, thank you again for watching. Let's keep going, right? So, like I said, we have blue-green taking 1-2, but as you see, it's Zeon aggro and then Earth Federation aggro. Now, it's very interesting to me that there's going to be 2 different types of builds of these floating around. They both have different strategies. They both have different goals within the decks. And it kind of paints a little bit of Gundam war lore into the card game itself, right? I mean, Zeon and the Earth Federation are 2 of the biggest, I'll call them rebel rousers in the whole UC timeline. And we're seeing these 2 decks start to pop up now and cause trouble for what used to be a very quote-unquote simple meta, right? It used to be very blocker heavy. Now we switched out to full-on aggression. Dare I say it's a full-on war, right? But then we also see in 3rd and 4th place the Cyber New type deck, the blue-red deck, which should be the natural counter to the aggro blue-green decks. It doesn't matter which build, like that theoretically should have been the counter to this, right? And we see it's very interesting that blue-green 1 and 2, blue-red 3 and 4, right? Now, speculation without me knowing the exact how the bracket worked in the final round, but assuming that 1 and 2 played each other in the final round, and the Zeon deck beat the Earth Federation deck, like in G-Clux, then those 2 should be 1 and 2, and then the 3 and 4 should have theoretically lost to both the blue-green decks, right? If anyone's out there who did play in the tournament, have a better idea of how the tournament was structured in terms of like the final round and which one was played against which one, that'd be amazing, because that is good context for us to know, especially since it's Swiss rounds with no top 8 cut, right? Just knowing who played against who is very important to know why things ended up the way that like 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ended up, right? Since they're all technically X1. So, alright. So from here, I got 10 lists that Egman published up on the website. You can check them out in the link below. But for the most part, we have 3 green-white, 3 green-blue, 2 blue-white, and 2 red-blue. A very, I would say, it's almost as even as you can get. If we had top 16 lists, or if I had the top 16 breakdown, this would be much, like, it probably would be scaled a lot differently depending on which deck got more popular, but I think the fact that we see 3 green-blue and 3 green-white is still appropriate, but we see both of the red-blue in the top 8, or in this case, top 8 plus 11 and 12. We see both those decks making the top 4. So red-blue, still very strong, and green-blue as well, showing a standing with only one of those decks not making it into the top 4. Okay? And now for the overall colors played, see blue is in the top 4, so blue is going to be the highest in everything but 2 of the decks. The interesting thing is that, yes, the green is up there because we now have the green-blue rush deck, but we see white start to fall off from before. Like before, we used to see blue and white used to be the most popular colors. White because it's played in the blue-white blocker deck. It's played in the green-white wing ramp deck, right? But now, as the blockers are starting to get phased out, white is going to start seeing less and less play. Which, in my last video, I gushed about Launcher Strike Gundam and how the white can eventually develop into a counter aggro playstyle depending on the build. I'm really hoping to see that show up in, well, the next event I get to have data for. And then red's hanging on there. Red, we didn't see any Zaf today. We only saw the Cyber New type, right? So red gets represented just by the Cyber New type deck alone. So that is something that we want to keep an eye on if we see more Zaf pop up in other events as well. And of course, your stat lines. Here's everything from the 12 deck lists that 10 deck lists that I had. Yeah, just take a mental note. Keep an eye on that. Pause the video, just look at that, just to make sure that you are able to see which numbers are relevant for your deck building, right? You know, I mean, pretty much, again, with set 1 being such a small card pool for now in terms of what cards are being played in the meta, it's going to remain roughly the same, especially like, you know, when you get to like 6, 7, 8. Those are, I think, going to stay the exact same as we go through this entire season. But I cannot wait for when we get the next set in and we start to see numbers start to shift around a little bit depending on what decks are going to be topping. All right. So let's talk about the first place deck list, the Zeon Rush aggro deck, right? Now, there's a lot of stuff here that you see for usual suspects. If you're playing, in this case, Zeon, they're playing the Char package, but they are not playing Char's Gelgoog. That got completely cut from the deck. In fact, this deck only plays up to level 3 units, meaning that from the turn this starts to play, like turn 1 you play Dop or the Zaku 1, this deck can shove 2 units down every single turn starting on turn 2 if they go first. I think this deck works very well going first or going second. It doesn't matter which one, because if you go first, you get to use Dop to make sure that you filter the next card in your hand, or the next card on the top to the bottom if it's useless. But if you go second, then you have access to your Zaku 2 that's going to be able to break EX bases, and then from there you just put down the rest of the guys to cover the rest of the shields. Now, the interesting thing is it is playing 1 copy of White Base. That is a really good card just to see against if the game goes on where it comes out from Shield. That's great. You know, you get a card that actually did something, because Corsica Base does not work when it is triggered from the shield. It only works when you play it from your hand, right? And that spawns out the 4/2 token. The white base is, to me, it looks pretty good because if you have the white base and you spawn the 3/3 Gundam, or if you spawn anything, later in the game you can use the G Fighter just to let it get high maneuver and swing in, because those tokens still have traits assigned to them. So I think that works really well. There is only 1 G Fighter here, so that G Fighter is more than likely saved for a final turn push. Especially imagine if you if they did like white base and they had like the gun tank token even, and then your opponent clears the rest of the board. They had the 1 G Fighter and that one lone little 1/1 swings for game. I think that'd be a hilarious end state. And then from here we have Amuro and Char 4 and 4. I think now we're gonna see those guys maxed out no matter what. And this was actually, so this last one, the Siege ploy, is interesting to me because we've seen it. I've seen it in a comment that the person was testing with it, and it does make a lot of sense, especially when you hit a specific turn. If they still have blockers up and you don't have Amuro, it acts as extra copies of Amuro. In the burst, it acts as a way to kind of stop the rush if you're being rushed against. So I do like it a lot. And it being at 2 is a great start. I think maybe we'll start to see it pop up in 4s, depending on how, again, the meta develops. And in terms of other ratios, the other standout to me is the Gun Cannon. Gun Cannon being at 4, and with it having a generic pair ability to rest an enemy unit that has 2 or less HP, I think it's just good overall, where if you have Gun Cannon and you're able to link with Amuro on turn 4, you're actually able to rest Zawart and Lifrith on the same turn, which means that the rest of your guys at that point should be able to swing for game. So the fact that it comes out that you can do that combo a turn earlier than when Ale Strike or Perfect Strike comes out, or even when they do come out, technically when they pair with Kira, they're only at 5 HP anyway, so Amuro or even a Seed Ploy can just go ahead and deal with that and rest them. So it's like, it adds an extra layer of being able to push more damage. And it could also work against Lifrith if they try to swing into your 2/2s, or you poke them for 1 with a gun tank, right? Well, you have to swing at something, then you poke them at 1 with the gun tank, and then it'll be at 2 HP. So then Gun Cannon can go ahead and rest it from there. So it kind of seals the deal. I think this deck is amazingly versatile in the fact that it can go first or go second, and I think that there's a very obvious choice here not to go past level 4. This deck is meant to step on the gas turn 1, and then from there continue to just keep breaking shields for the rest of however long the game lasts, which I think should only be like 4 or 5 turns at the most. 5 might be pushing it, but 4 I think is definitely like a kill turn from there. But yeah, no, amazing stuff. great to see this. Let's look at the second place deck, the Earth Federation build. Now this one's interesting because it's playing Wu Fei and Shenlong in it as a bit of a way to have breachers, a way to destroy blockers. In this case, you know, it is a level 5 card, a level 4 card, level 5 card. It does not play Char. It is playing for the Wu Feis, and those are the only breachers in the deck. So it's not even playing Rick Dom. There's other cards here in substitute of that, where in this case Wu Fei works only with those 6 units, right? Now from the bases and the command side, there's only one Show of Resolve. Makes sense, you know. It's just like an emergency card to draw 2. It doesn't need to be 4 of anymore. I think at that point we've moved away from a slower type of gameplay into a faster gameplay, where I think the Show of Resolve is literally only there for when things don't go your way and the game drags out a little bit longer and you need to see the pieces later on, right? It is also running Corsica Base. Corsica Base is seeing so much play nowadays. I think it's a fantastic going first card. You play it on curve, you get the 4/2 out, and you get the base out, which is fantastic. And then later on, you can put it down to spawn 1/1 guys. So that helps with that maintaining board presence from there. In terms of other cards here, right, we have 1 Angsha, we have 3 Jagans. The Jagans work very well since, you know, if you look at the lower end, you got GM, Gun Tank, G Fighter, Gun Cannon. Those are all Earth Federation cards, so Jagan should probably only ever be a 1-drop card that you play. So it's just there for extra board filler from there. Even Reziel is actually, if you go to level 3, if you have at least 1 other Earth Federation, when you play Reziel, you also play Jagan on the same turn. So the Jagan's there to maximize efficiency in terms of putting down units that are only 1 cost. Since aside from the usual, the 2/2 vanillas, the Zaku and the gun tank rather, these Jagan's there just like as another 1-drop. So you get to, again, maximize field presence as much as possible, maximize resource usage. And, you know, obviously we got 4 of Amros, and we are playing the Star Deck Gundam to be able to pump everyone else up by 1 when you pair it. So I think both sides are very different. I think the Shenlong is definitely a new experimental usage. I think it has worked out since this player did get second. Yeah, and I'm very curious to see if we're going to start seeing Shenlong pop up in more decks, or if it's going to end up just being, well, mono blue at a certain point, right? So we'll keep an eye on that. Now, in terms of the deck breakdown, right? Both decks are very similar in the fact that they only play 8 pilots. Doesn't matter, you know, it's 4 Amuro plus your extra sub-pilot, Char or Wu Fei in this case. The units, again, I like looking at where the units are. We have 37, 38-ish units, depending on the build, which is quite a lot. That is just about, what, that's almost 2/3 of your deck, I guess. So I think it's a very big chunk of your deck that you're dedicating for that. Well, actually, if it's almost 40, then it's technically 90. That's 80%. So it's actually more than 2/3. Anyway, it's most of your deck is going to be units in this case, right? We see one deck playing 4 bases, another deck playing 3 bases. So we're starting to wean down those ever so slightly, because as an aggro deck, you're not there for a long enough time to be able to use bases to block your opponent. No, the bases are there just to help you not like die in the mirror match as easily. And then we have the two commands and the 1 command. The command cards are starting to fall off in favor. So we're gonna either see more siege ploys or just start to see people playing minimal amounts of show resolve, right? Going along to the average cards per level, it looks like, again, because we are centered around the low end rush, there's a lot of level 2s and a lot of level 3s. Level 1, mostly just going to be the DOP, mostly going to be the Zaku 1s, depending on if you're playing the Zeon side. If you're not, Earth Federation unfortunately does not have a good 1-drop, because the only vanilla that's level 1 cost is an Oz unit, which I think you can... you probably don't want to play that. But if you're playing Zeon, you have access to DOP and Zaku 1, right? And from here, like I said, turn 2, turn 3, you hit the gas, you put down 2 units every single turn. Maybe you can put down 3 units on level 3, depending on your hand. especially if you're playing Earth Federation with the Jagans. And then from there, turn 4, turn 5, game should be pretty much over. It's starting to consolidate itself where we are seeing these numbers go towards 2 and 3, right? Okay, and then here's your average cost per AP per level. It's a rush deck. It's one of those things where you look at this and you say, well, yeah, it most of the cards have like 2 health, 3 health, but they're there to break shields. They're there to make sure that you can poke the damage through. Now that we've started to wean away from a blocker meta, it's actually less important about what blockers you're fighting against, and more importantly on how you're going to be able to deal with their rush cards, right? And so, you know, like their AP might be low early on. It doesn't matter when there's like 3 of these guys running around the field. Okay. All right. So from here, let's move on to the Cyber New type decks, right? The decks are fundamentally different. I'd say there's a lot of key differences in them that I do want to cover between 3rd and 4th. So looking at the 3rd place deck, the first thing that draws my eye is the 6 bases. It's 3 Vasilius and 3 Corsica, which is, I think, a lot of bases, more so than we've seen. We also only see 8 pilots. I believe other decks maybe we were leaning towards, like, let's say like 9 or 10. Now I think we're solidifying just 4 Amros and 4 Maritas, right? In terms of the commands, we have 4 Show Resolve still in this list, and 3 Battle of Aces. Battle of Aces is a good card that pairs with the Gun Tank and the Angsha, where you poke damage on them, you're able to kill it off with that. Or even if the unit's already damaged from whatever previous thing they try to trade with, Battle of Aces is able to finish it off, since 3 is essentially, if they even have 1 damage, it kills off most things, since most things curve out of 4, from as we've seen from the stat lines. Okay, so the unit here that's stand out to me is the Banshee Unicorn mode. The level 4 3 drop that's a 4/3. It just has 1 ability, which is when paired, you rest an enemy unit that has 3 or less HP. That's it. Doesn't matter if you pair with Amro, so it acts as a separate type of gun tank where you can aim a little bit higher than what gun tank can do. And it does link with the Cyber New type trait, which at this moment is only Marita that's being played in the deck, right? So it's an interesting choice. I think it's right now, and in terms of what meta we're on, it is to me better to play more of these than the vanilla Kshatriyas. I think we've moved away from seeing the vanilla Kshatriyas do, I don't want to say do a lot of work, but the 3/4 stat line, 3/4 vanilla stat line isn't as useful when you're getting rushed down by a bunch of 2/2 weenies, right? The fact that when you pair the Banshee Unicorn mode with Marita, and you get the link effect off, you're able to ping a damage, swing into something. You can also, because it targets 3 or less HP, it's mostly everything on a rush deck field. So you're able to put it down, and maybe you can finish it off with like one of your other units that are on the field, because this deck is playing quite a lot of 1-drop units. They're playing a lot of the 2/2s. Funny enough, they're playing 2 Zaku Mariners and 2 Gins. I think that's funny because it's like anecdotally, that's like an old thing in Yu-Gi-Oh where you would play those just to confuse people. Functionally, it doesn't actually matter in the deck because there's nothing that's Zeon, there's nothing that's Zaft. But you do it just to like mess with your opponent to get them to think that, oh, maybe they're playing 4 and 4 or like some other weird ratio, when in reality you're just playing 4 red 2/2 vanilla. So sorry, aside over, I just find that funny that that's like in the deck. But going back to Banshee Unicorn mode, I think it works a little bit better than the vanilla Kshatriya. I think it helps push back the field a little bit, especially on a level 4 field. Like, let me think. You're not able to do much else aside from Link that turn. Just looking at this, maybe you can play Vasilius with a Kshatriya. So it's just a way, trying to find ways to maximize resources, especially if you will go first in this deck, right? That's going to be exactly 4. You're good to go from there. And if you wait till next turn, if you pair them with Amuro, that's 2 things that you get to rest. So it works very similar to Gun Cannon, but just at a different pacing, right? It's like a Gun Cannon that works with Marita and and triggers the Merida effect as well. So from here, let's take a look at this, the 4th place deck. So it's a little bit different. It's not playing any Corsica bases. It is playing 2 battle bases and 4 show resolves. This is, I think, is a little bit more of the standard list that you would see. It's got everything that you've seen before in these type of decks. 3 Kshatriyas, the big Kshatriya, 2 of the Banshee Destroy modes, 4 Star Deck Gundams. So I think this is what I would say is your standard list, right? You max out on gun cannons, you max out of Angshas. I think this is what it's... If you build a deck and you want to play red-blue, I think you want to start here and try to customize from there. I think the 3rd place deck is definitely very... I feel like the player definitely developed it on its own. This one, I feel you can literally give this to someone who wants to play this type of deck, and they should be able to do fairly well with it, just because of how the ratios are working out, where it's comfortable, right? You max on the important stuff. You have 3s of some of the semi-important stuff that you see here and there. One can argue maybe you can play 4 Kshatriyas now instead of 3, but for now 3 is okay, especially when I think they're pretty expensive also. I think maybe $30, so until they get the 4th one, 3 is pretty good to start with, right? Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show this off just to show this is a little bit more of a standardized list, just to see how it works against the Zeon Rush. I'd be very curious just to see how those matches, again, what those ladder matches were like, or not ladder, the round matches were. Okay, so now we go to the breakdowns. We got 30 to 31 units, 8 pallets. I think, knock on wood, that's what we're going to start seeing just cleanly across the board now. We got 6.5 commands, so between 6 and 7. There's only 2 decks, so there's, one played 6, one played 7. But you can say between those 2, you can't go wrong. 4 show resolve is definitely what seemed to be the mandatory in the decks. Then you have 5 bases. Well, in this case, one deck had 6, the other one had 4. So I think the bases is the part that we're going to start seeing a little bit more flux on. It's a little bit hard for me to tell which is correct, since Corsica base and Vasilius do 2 different things, essentially. They try to aim for 2 different timings in terms of when you want to play it. So it really depends on you as a player, where you're going to lie with those card choices. Alright, and then for the average cards per level, we see a lot of centering in the level 2 area and a lot of centering in the level 4 area in terms of units. We have 11 level 2s, 9.5, so 9 and 10. Level 4s, right? We have very little level 3s. I think the only one that's really played is the gun tank. So it's not as prominent in level 3s for this type of deck. This deck does want to try to counter rush with their rush and then hit level 4, try to stabilize. Level 5 is what is the blowout turn to stop the rush from happening. If you can get off big Kshatriya and the Merida Link, that's going to be able to clean up at least, if you're really good and on spreading damage, that should be able to clear 3 units on that turn. So this is what the deck's trying to do in terms of where these ratios are. 4 is just gotta hold the line till you get to 5. You have to have the big Kshatriya and Merida on level 5 in order to even come back from there. And then of course we have the unit breakdowns, but since we are in a rush meta, I hate saying this, but the health really doesn't matter when they're resting everything and just trying to punch you in the face. But just keep it in mind. Keep it in mind for now. If we go back to a blocker meta or a control meta, then we'll be able to talk a little bit more about this. But knowing that we are in a rush meta as of this week, it's kind of tough to talk about numbers like this, Okay. So, to round it out, I'm not going to talk about the green-white decks. They all looked, to me, fairly similar to what we've seen before. Blue-white also did not have enough showing to warrant having its own breakdown, but I just wanted to talk about the green-white and the blue-white decks that do show up in this tournament, right? Now, this one is I would say, the standard deck. There is notable differences from this green-white to the standard list. Notably, there is no ramp in here. There's no bird mode. There's no invitation that's going to get ripped up by hero. None of that. It's pure blockers early on. You have Zawart, Lifrith, Launcher Strike Gundam, which I'm a huge fan of as a level 4 slot, since this deck doesn't have a good... Previously didn't have a good level 4 slot. It's running Perfect Strike instead of Ale Strike, which I think is a good meta call. It gets rid of the tokens if they're playing FAML. Unfortunately, we're seeing more Kasika bases, so it's a 4-2 instead of the FAMLs, which is 3-1s. So it's like Perfect Strike is... It was there. I think it was a good choice. It's just the Corsica base Uprise has started to counter that tech. We got maxed out on Death Scythe, the Wing Gundam, and then 3 Wing Zeros, right? So it's very, very clear linear progression in terms of what you want to play every single turn. In terms of pilot, we got 10 pilots, 2 Kiras and duos, and heroes are maxed out. In terms of the commands is actually interesting to me because it's playing Unforeseen Incident at 1, which is a really good turning point card. If you catch your opponent off guard with it, 1 is really all you need in order to like wipe their field or punish them on a turn. And then you have 2 Striker Packs, which I like as a card as a burst card, since you're able to get a 3/3 blocker out, which should be able to block the next attack and then swing into another card on your next turn. Just go for essentially a 2-for-1 trade. So I do like it here. It is a nice deterrent and it is a nice burst. It would be really funny to see if this goes up to 4, just like Hawk of Endymion, if that's also going to show up in future lists. But, you know, it's more speculation on my end. And then in terms of bases, this deck is also playing Archangel because the early game is very centered around having the blockers, right? I think that playing Archangel along with these blockers allows you to, again, push back against some of the rush that's happening. You're not just sitting there passing turn with your guys. You're able to, I don't know, like, just try to get rid of something, right? Especially if you're going second, and you're going to have that EX resource that you could potentially use to play out Archangel. And then the next turn from there, use the ability. It's also good there. I don't know, it's also good as a card where if you miss your ideal turn 4, turn 5 drop, it's just there to have like a little bit of insurance, right? Because you can just use a Lifrit to kill a 2/2 vanilla and then reactivate it again with Archangel. So I think it's also necessary from there to put in the deck. Okay, blue-white. Okay, this is more the standard list. I just wanted to show it off. To me, there's the most standout cards is again Launcher Strike Gundam. Great card in the level 4 slot. Reziel is actually seeing less play now. This is interesting. Down to 1 in this deck. And the funny part is, in this deck, it's actually maxing out Bananger with 2 unicorns and 2 unicorn destroy modes, and only 1 big freedom. Now, I say this a lot, but I hope it's not an accessibility issue. I hope it's just like a choice. So I'm gonna keep saying that every time I see these expensive cards that are at 1, just because I'm worried if it's like accessibility. But then again, I'm like, okay, well, they also were up the top 8, so it's working out for them. We also see Unforeseen Incident at 1 in this deck as well. Again, good card if you're able to have a momentum shift. But the bases is also where my eye draws, because instead of like maxing out Archangel and having 1 white base, we have 3 white bases and 2 Archangels. I'll be honest, I don't really have a speculation on doing that. I maybe it's just like to get more board presence. But yeah, I mean it's just like it's just different from what we've seen before. But again, all the cards here that we've seen, maybe not the Launcher Strike and the Unforeseen, is cards that we've seen in every blue-white list so far, and we've seen them played at different ratios. It's just a matter of tuning based on the person playing the deck. So I just wanted to show that off and say that, you know, if this was the only blue-white deck that made top 8, so man, if we're entering a rush meta, I really hope we don't have people yelling Sig Zeon at the regionals, because that would be a new form of nightmare to witness. It'll be a historical moment to say, but that's just my where my brain goes sometimes. And yeah, no, I'm excited to see how this Rush meta turns out. I'm excited to see what pops out. I talked a lot in my other video in the Replay Works number 4 about certain white cards that can be used to tech against Rush. Hopefully, as we go into the rest of the season, the rest of the month, you know, there's going to be more events, I'm sure, that I can get data on to see those. Maybe White's going to make a comeback and be able to play counter Rush to that and play a little bit more control as opposed to like a passive blocker list. You know, hoping that's the case, because that would be very, very exciting to see a meta evolve this fast in a new game, right? Normally, set 1 is a little bit stale. People get bored of it pretty easily, but it seems like it's getting a little bit more exciting every week as we see these tournaments come on. But yeah, that's it for me. Just for a quick reminder, like and subscribe to the video, leave a comment down below on any thoughts you might have about any of my musings. I'd love to see what your thoughts are as well on this current meta, but if anything, we'll see you in the next one.